I'll take this time to thank you and your illustrious panel to join us today, Sandra. I really appreciate your help and support to put this session together, which is very interesting. And it is titled as Cybersecurity as an Economic Development Catalyst. Dr. Sandra Jordan is a dear friend, and she's recently retired from University of South Carolina, Aiken. She's a Distinguished Chancellor Emerita. Dr. Jordan is the Distinguished Chancellor Emerita of the University of South Carolina, Aiken. Under her leadership, the university established a unique cybersecurity program that results in students earning a BSc in cybersecurity and 3 SANS certifications. The institution also partnered with Savannah River National Lab to create the Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative at USC Aiken. That includes a focus of building cybersecurity enhancement with business and industry and the National Guard to create the Dreamport. She was recipient of South Carolina Chamber of Commerce Eisner Cybersecurity Leadership Award in 2021. Congratulations. And with this, take it away, Sandra.
Thank you, Ani. We're so glad to be a part of this conference, and thanks to you and to Georgia Tech for hosting us. I'm very happy to introduce our very stellar panel. First, Colonel Linda Riddle, and I said that wrong, Linda, so correct me. Pronounce it again for me. Riddle?
It's Riddle.
Riddle, okay. Colonel Riddle is the brigade commander for the 228th Tactical Theater Signal Brigade, and that's in South Carolina, and she's part of the Army National Guard. She is a recent 2020 graduate of the Cyber War College at the National Defense University. Her accomplishments go on and on and on, but I want to leave lots of time for discussions. Let's just stop and say we are so honored to have Linda with us. Colonel, thank you for joining us. We also have Major General Les Eisner. He is retired, but he is a visionary leader and continues to be so, shaping cybersecurity in South Carolina and beyond. He's currently working in the private sector in the areas of aerospace, cyber, data analytics in support of the United States government and private sector. He's held several key positions on several important boards in the U.S. Army, South Carolina, and the region. Several years ago, he became part of the University of South Carolina's leadership, and in that role, he became the Deputy Director of the Office of Economic Engagement. With his cyber connections and knowledge and the connectivity with economic development and engagement, he has accomplished quite a bit in the state, including successful cyber consortium in South Carolina, working with industry and academia and government. We're very happy to have General Eisner with us today as we talk about cyber and as an economic stimulant.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. I'm welcome. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you both, Colonel and General. Thank you both. We're waiting for the mayor to join us, and I'm going to see if Ani can make a quick call to the mayor, because I think it'll be great to have someone from that sector talking as well.
I'm reaching him.
Thank you. Lynn, I'm going to start with you. Could you talk a little bit about the ongoing project in Aiken, South Carolina? It's the collaboration between the university, the community, and the National Guard involving cybersecurity, focused all around the Dreamport. And the plan is that cyber Dreamport will be a place where business and industry and academia will come together with the National Guard to promote expansion of cybersecurity.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Jordan. So what we've realized is that South Carolina has pretty amazing talent, and we definitely want to capitalize and leverage that talent. We also realize that we have the capacity and the infrastructure to become a national asset in countering cyber threats. But in order to do this, we need to build a collaboration, and this is where the Dreamport comes in, We will have a collaboration between the military, the education, the business and industry research centers to be able to protect our infrastructure and continue to attract new industry partners also within the state. So the South Carolina Dreamport Cyber Collaboration will be located with USC Aiken there in Aiken, South Carolina. And as I mentioned before, it's a collaboration of academia, industry, and government to really capitalize on the talent that we have here within South Carolina. It is an innovation and collaboration initiative that leverages the state, federal participants, such as the Savannah River National Laboratory, the South Carolina National Guard, our industry partners, and other academic institutions. It is driven by exploring a cyber marketplace within South Carolina's need to ensure that our state is poised to take full advantage of this marketplace with the workforce and being able to meet the technical challenges that the digital world presents and grow in our cyber industrial footprint here in South Carolina. So we're pretty excited about that. We'll have more than just a Dreamport out there. We'll have our readiness center out there. So a pretty big deal, and we're super excited to get that started.
The Dreamport, which is, kind of a fancy name for a collaborative space, is really a 10-year endeavor. If you look at some of the other success around the country, the Maryland Dreamport tied to NSA and some other cyber activities, we've looked at those models, and we're building not only a collaborative model, but an adaptive collaborative model based on the skill sets and the assets we have in the region, which are growing every day. The challenge we have in the cyber digital domain is it's got two personalities. We hyper focus for valid reasons sometimes on the dark side of cyber, the breaches, the hacking, the dark web, somebody stole my information. But we don't sometimes concentrate on the positive side of the digital ecosystem, which is efficiency, economic growth, the digital ecosystem, and as Linda said, how do we leverage the talent? The challenge with the Dreamport going forward, and we've got some really, really key leaders like yourself and others, the mayor, educate the enabling partners, which are critical in this collaborative workspace, to understand the benefit of cyber as we work through some workforce development issues, educational issues, knowledge management issues, infrastructure issues, connectivity issues. And so the Dreamport, to what Colonel Riddle said, is a big deal, but it's the sum total much greater than the brick and mortar in the building that will exist, along with the Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative, Cybercom, the academic partners, and also our governmental partners.
Les, with your experience, have you found that a Dreamport kind of collaboration will help us retain existing businesses in the region and bring in new businesses?
I think the answer in short is yes, but if you look at the Porter's classic economic clustering tied to IT, we being the leadership of the state and the region, have got to work through how do we build the current and needed workforce for that? How do we identify both the opportunity and the challenge? How do we access the capital market? Where are the venture capitalists that will come in there and excite and accelerate economic growth? And that's a little bit different than venture capitalists in the manufacturing domain and the classical. And so how do we go after technology-based venture capital? We have proximity to our clients of Cybercom, the National Lab, growing industry and academia. So that's a benefit. But we've got to go through this methodically, which we have been doing, and be candid with each other and understand where our gaps are, close those gaps with our enabling partners of academia, industry, and government, and then move forward in a methodical kind of way. Some people are, in my humble opinion, frightened by the digital ecosystem, but it's not scary. It's just putting the pieces of the puzzle together in a methodical way. And as Linda said, and we will succeed.
Thank you. So I appreciate that. I believe that the mayor has joined us. I'm going to ask him to turn on his camera and his microphone so he can hear us, but anyone can respond to this question. What has the community done to support the development of the Dreamport? And what do they plan to continue to do? Because this could be a place where the community will diversify their economy.
So while the mayor spools up, I'll add a few comments and then let the mayor join us, since his position is the mayor of the city of Aiken. Having been working this effort for the past 10 years, the first thing done is we've got a lot of industry and academic buy-in. Governmental buy-in has occurred recently over the last 2 or 3 years as they learned what this thing called cyber was and what the economic benefit will be going forward in an area where we're predominantly a manufacturing geared region. And so we're not going to do away with manufacturing, but how do we add to our portfolio the mayor, the county council, the chambers of commerce have done some simple things like hosting summits and discussions so we can educate the community and our leaders at the state level and the federal level. And that's a work in progress. Just because you can spell cyber doesn't mean you understand it. By Webster, it's a definition of a culture of computers, and we all live in the cyber ecosystem. And so it's a constant education of what does this mean to me? The other exciting thing to me is, unlike most of the economic models that we still live under, the digital ecosystem is not constrained by a contiguous border. And if you look in the Aiken, South Carolina area, we have Augusta, Georgia, which is booming with cybercom and other industry growth. We have a lot of technology venture capital money in Atlanta. We have Charlotte, which is a financial hub, and we even have Raleigh-Durham as a growing financial hub. And so regionally, as we get the Dreamport going, the collaborative with the AMC and other initiatives, we're just going to be a cog in a huge southeastern digital ecosystem, which is pretty darn powerful. We just have to, make sure we know where we're going, and it's pretty.
Thank you, General. I think you faded out there at the end. We had some problems with our technology. I'm going to ask Linda, one of the things the General mentioned was the need to develop workforce in order to make all of this work long-term. So are you seeing, what are you seeing in other areas of the state that can be brought to bear to develop the workforce and help to address the problem the General mentioned?
Yes, thank you. So one of the things, so when I'm not in uniform, I work full-time at the Citadel. And so I think academia plays a huge role in developing the workforce. And how we do that is, training our guard as well. So one thing I'll talk about is just this past summer, the Citadel under its DoD Cyber Institute received a grant. And with that grant, they used that grant to train the National Guard on campus there for 2 weeks in Security Plus and Pentest Plus. And that's pretty huge. That's huge. And because I always say when you train the Guard, you train the community, because our soldiers are within that community. And so just the fact that that we are using our universities in that way is pretty huge. Also, I think just as you can see among the universities, a lot of cyber programs are being developed. And again, that plays a huge deal in developing our workforce. The certifications are really a big deal with our defense industrial base, making sure those supply chains are where they need to be. So there are a lot of different things that are going on. I do see the mayors popping in there. So I think that in developing our workforce, academia plays a great deal in developing that partnership with industry. So we're always looking for internships. I know that all schools are, because with our students, as we develop the workforce, one of the key things is making sure that they get hands-on experience. Getting that hands-on experience is very, very valuable. So again, as we develop our workforce, it's making sure that we are connected and tied in to what industry is doing. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colonel. I'm happy to see that the mayor found us. Hello, Mayor Osborne.
Dr. Jordan.
It's good to see you. I didn't get a chance to introduce you, so let me do that very quickly. Our participants, I'm sure, are curious. The mayor has served Aiken for 4 years, and under his leadership, Aiken was recognized as the best small town in the South. We're not proud of that too much, are we, Rick? And that was by Southern Living. He's a lifetime resident of the community and a third-generation family business owner in Aiken. But I invited him to be with us today because he's been absolutely key in bringing the community along in this cybersecurity endeavor. And so, Mayor, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like
very much.
to ask you how the Aiken community feels about this project.
Well, first of all, excuse my ineptness on signing in. So forgive me for that technical problem, but I appreciate staff helping us so much. Our community is excited about the opportunities we have. It really is. We're not unknown to meeting needs within our not just community but country, and that we have Savannah River site located in Aiken, which is a DOE complex. And the opportunity and the synergy, I think proximity plays a lot into it, with being close to what's happening over at Fort Gordon with the Army Cyber. But there's an excitement about it, and as a city, one thing we feel like we have to do and took initiative in, as we were partnering with the USC Aiken and others and making this come about, was that we call it the term till the soil, for those who might know. But we know what a growing market cyber is, and what opportunities it brings, if you will, the intellectual capital it brings to a community. And so we made sure we had infrastructure in place, and are still currently working on that, because we believe from the Dreamport and partnering with what's going on at Savannah River site, it will bring further opportunities to our community. So we want to be prepared for that, and our infrastructure and other things. But the community received the news so well, and we're very fortunate to have a university like USC of Aiken in our community, and working with them, and the open communication that we've had with our partners through this.
Thank you so much, Rick. Let me follow up with another question. How do you plan, or how does the Office of Economic Development, the various entities, plan to recruit around the Dreamport new businesses, or use it to help retain businesses? Have y'all had any discussions about how you'd want to reach out and make that a highlight of what's happening with Dreamport and the Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative, which also has a cyber agenda?
Well, certainly in our economic, we just had a new master plan. As a matter of fact, in the last 2 years with COVID, we wanted to get ahead of that and include that within the mix. And we feel like cyber offers a lot of opportunity for our community. Not unlike the Dreamport wanting to be at the college campus and the university campus, but also in the proximity of what's going on at Fort Gordon Cyber. It brings in a lot of others because there's such a synergy. And one thing we know in every report I see, I think it's 2026, 27, but between now and then, they expect the investment in cybersecurity to double. I mean, it's supposed to be over 600 billion from all the numbers that we've seen. So we know both private and public sector are growing in this. So we absolutely are. We're looking at ways that we can meet those needs. not only from the professional and industry standpoint, but also personally, because we know that today with millennials and others, they want to go to a place where they live, work, and play. And we try to build our community to meet that need, so that it's not only meeting their professional needs through the work that they do, but also for families with their schools. And our school system is certainly a big part of that. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit later about some of the initiatives from the governor's office tying in with USC Aiken and partnering with this. But yeah, it's huge for our economic. I mean, development, we certainly do promote, and we will, as the Dreamport, once we start breaking ground and as it happens, we will already have relationships with others to bring in for the conversations.
I appreciate your comment about relationships, because I think that is important. I'm going to follow up with that in just a moment with Les about challenges, and Linda about challenges between institutions as we look at building a cohesive program within the state. But first, let me ask either Linda or Les, why was the location, the mayor used the word proximity and the power of proximity. Why is that important to this project?
I'll go first, Linda, and then let you add in the cracks. So I want to go back to what the previous question, and then I want to stitch it forward to the current question. So what has been done well so far is the leadership, and Dr. Jordan, when you were in a former capacity as the chancellor of USC Aiken, looked at the current educational capabilities we had, and we adapted to better. USC Aiken was one of the first academic institutions, a 4-year comprehensive institution in the region that really started a cybersecurity degree where the individual student, when he graduates, comes out with SANS certificates, which is pretty huge in the workforce, because the industry wants people that really can operate in the network when they graduate. And a lot of times the graduates, if they don't have certificates, like Linda alluded to earlier, they're not as employable. They have to be retrained. And so what we've done that. We've also leveraged our technical school in the area. And for most part within academia, there's a desire and a want and an understanding to collaborate. The Citadel has a very robust growing cybersecurity program to include cyber intelligence. And so instead of using academic partners as a competitor, what we need to do is look at each other as enhancing, enabling partners. And we've done that pretty successfully in most areas. And that thing alone will entice industry and government to want to come to the region, because they see collaborative, not competitive, a nature of what the workforce needs. So I'll add to that. The proximity. So I was involved over the last decade of selecting where the Guard and the federal government spent some money. And we looked around the region. We looked in Charleston, we looked in Greenville, we looked at area, and we did an analysis. And because of Fort Gordon at the time, as it was becoming cybercom, and the growing need there, and the growing need for the Augusta, Georgia area, that the willingness of the academic partners and the industry partners and government partners at the local level to say, yes, this is the art of the possible and we can do this. We stitch all the parts together and we came up with the idea for the Dreamport. And it sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And in this case, we were lucky enough to have the Department of Energy, with your leadership, Dr. Jordan, and others, Vahid's leadership, to build an advanced manufacturing collaborative, which is an enabling capability in cyber tied to automation, robotics, and additive manufacturing. So it's another cog in the wheel that adds to the portfolio of the digital ecosystem. So the power of proximity, which is one of Porter's classic IT clustering characteristics, we have all that in front of us, and it's now time to leverage it. And we're doing pretty well leveraging it so far.
Yes, great job, sir. Only thing I would add is that it is about relationships. The cyber community is pretty tight, it's very small, but we're all after the same thing, and that's just to protect our infrastructure. And so when you're talking about proximity, it's like, where can we collaborate built off of our relationship where we can really synergize and make the most effort to get things done. So I think it's a great opportunity to pull in the Savannah River National Laboratory, Fort Gordon there, and USC Aiken with the things that are going on there, along with the other schools, as the general mentioned. So great opportunity, but I'm a big believer in relationships. And you build that relationship with the organization, not with individuals, because individuals come and go. So it's so important to build that relationship with the organizations. Thank you.
Sandra? Sandra, are you there?
Of the partnership. Where are the challenges in the
Okay, I think we missed part of your sentence.
I said, where do we see the challenges for the future to making this work?
So I'll jump on that, and then Rick or Linda can pile on. There's a fine line between vision and hallucination. And right now we have a vision, and Linda just very articulately said it is about relationships at multiple levels, and the relationships go down to the K-12 level, all the way to the senior executive level and industry level. And the challenge becomes, we've got to get everybody bought into the vision and the incremental successes that we'll have. In the cyber and the digital ecosystem, COVID did some arguably some positive things. It accelerated technology that was already on the shelf. It allowed us to communicate as we are now with Zoom and GoToMeetings. It allows somebody that's living in Wisconsin to work for a company in South Carolina. That challenges the historic economic models. And so we have to adapt to that. We have to understand those challenges, but we can't look at them as stovepipes or large speed bumps. We have to look at them as enabling opportunities. And that's a constant education thing. And as we move forward, the education part of the collaborative partnership and those relationships has to be constant in order for it to succeed. We often gravitate towards Silicon Valley and say Silicon Valley is the end all be all. But if you look at the history of Silicon Valley as an example, it started in the 1940s with World War II. And the technology, because of the war effort, after that, it grew over decades of time, as did the Raleigh Research Triangle. And so I hope to look back 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and go, wow, look what we did. Look at the economic prosperity. Look at we're thought leaders in cybersecurity and the digital ecosystem. And how the heck did they do that? And I believe we will be successful.
Yes, Dr. Jordan, I'll follow up. I think the general's absolutely correct in the partnerships, and I think bringing in the fact that it's not just as we're addressing it at the university level, but it's also preparing a workforce from even in the elementary, which I know at USC Aiken they have programs that are starting, bringing middle school, high schoolers in. The Governor's School for Cyber Patriots, which is hosted at the Ruth Patrick Science and Education Center, there is an important component of that. And it really is a preparing the workforce. I think the general mentioned that earlier, and it really is something that's important. That not only is it bringing in this outside talent, but it's also preparing those who are in the community to be prepared for opportunities that may arise also. So I think the planning is important. I think other challenges is while it may make perfect sense and be the right decision, one thing that we all do is kind of navigate the political of it also, and the for the funding, and I think that's one thing where I can go back to the synergy and partnerships that we've had with both university, the whole region. It really is. I think the territorial lines that you see often between municipalities and county, we've all worked together with leadership in Columbia to keep this at the forefront, and that the decision is made off of the data, not off of one district or the other. If you take all that out of it, it just makes sense for our community and for our country for it to be here. So I think navigating that political and this decision making has been a big part of it, and challenge, but yet opportunity for us.
Thank you, Mayor. Linda, do you want to add into that?
I definitely think the same. To me, it's that awareness across the board with building the partnerships. It's how do we not become stovepiped in what we are doing, and making sure that there's a connective tissue all the way through the state when it comes to cyber. You know, if the Citadel is building a program, how do we connect that to what USC Aiken is doing, to what the other schools are doing, so that we build on each other. So, you know, recently also this summer we did Gen Cyber, and that's really looking for those, you know, K through 12 students and getting them excited about what's going on, because there's also an intimidation factor there. You know, math can be scary, and when they think cyber, they think math, you know. So again, the challenge is making not only the students aware, but making the parents aware, making just our community as a whole aware. But then I think getting out of our stovepipes and really building upon the program, bringing in some of those technical colleges to build some 2+2 programs. So there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of great efforts that are already going on. But I think that's the challenge for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. General, I don't think your mic is on again.
And I used to fly helicopters. I want to back to something the mayor said. There is an element of politics of any economic growth. And because cyber is more intangible than, say, building an industrial park, that becomes more difficult in educating the political domain. At the local level, all the way to the state level and the regional level, if you look at some of the cities around the country that are having accelerated growth in cyber digital, like Austin, Texas, we already talked about Silicon Valley, but even Wyoming's committed to becoming cyber Wyoming. There's some incentives that the politicians have to understand, whether they're tax incentives tied towards technology-based cyber companies that want to move their LLC, their S Corp, or their corporation there. At the local level, there's some other infrastructure incentives with DRENS lines or some other technical connectivity that we've got at this a cost incurred. Some of that the industries can pay for in a collaborative environment, but we really have to understand what the ecosystem needs from the tangible as well as the intangible. And our political partners have to understand that. And they have to work through the competition of, well, why aren't you doing this for another state? One of the things we discussed, I know Dr. Jordan, you and I discussed this, is what we're really building is a template for economic success for a small community that's very applicable to other areas in the Southeast. You know, who are the partners? What are the technologies you need? What are the infrastructure programs you need? Which is hugely powerful beyond just the economic impact that we're going to see.
One of the things I think we were very proud of is the creation of a high school on the campus, which gave us an opportunity to interface with the superintendent and so forth over a cyber curriculum connected to that. And the mayor then mentioned Ruth Patrick doing K through 12 education. Linda talked about that taking place in other parts of the states and Charleston as well, around the Citadel. I think that you don't start your pipeline just with college programs. You have to think in terms of how you introduce people, as Linda said, to cyber, how you get them past the fear of, I don't know this, and how you interact with other businesses and industries to get some excitement around this. Do you have other thoughts or examples that you've seen in the state?
So I'll give Linda a shout out. Recently, she and I were having a conversation, and she went back to her hometown, Barnwell, South Carolina, and was mentoring young students. She's a very smart, capable woman. You owe me lunch, Linda. But she went back to mentor young students that are certainly bright and capable of entering the workforce, but they don't know because either guidance counselors or the educators don't understand what coding means. And so some of that education, whether it's mentoring, teaching, and coaching, is very important to keep the seeds growing. The ancillary conversations we have, whatever level of leadership we are important to also generate excitement. Because until we get tangible growth and the mayor's at a ribbon cutting ceremony, because we just have a large technology company that's going to locate in Aiken, people don't really know if this is going to succeed or not. It will succeed. We have to continue those small but albeit important conversations at this individual level, at the collective level.
I'll just say thank you, sir, for the shout out there. One thing that's really important, I think we have to go out and reach the high school, reach that middle school and elementary school. One of the things we did recently, again, regarding Cyber Patriot, is one of our high schools put a message out on Facebook. And this is kind of how I saw it. So a neighbor knew that I was working in cyber and said, hey, here's a Facebook message from a high school saying that they needed support or needed some mentorship with Cyber Patriot. And so I'm like, well, I work at a college. We've got cadets. We could, go over there. And this is about 40 minutes away from the college. But again, when the call was out there, and you don't know, I mean, you hear all kinds of things now, and people use media in lots of different ways. So to see this call for support through Facebook, through the neighborhood, and then it gets to me. And then now that high school Cyber Patriot team is doing really well. They actually won their recent competition, but we have students, one in particular that goes out to the high school once a week to mentor and support them. And also just recently for that competition, those high school students came to the Citadel and worked in our lab. So again, it's building that relationship. And I also know it's not going to just fall in your lap. You actually have to go out looking for it.
That's a good point. We've always said at the university, if you have gamers on the campus, you have potential cyber students. So looking for places where the interest could be channeled toward cybersecurity or, 3D simulation or some way that they can channel that toward a career that enforces what the state is trying to accomplish as well. So I think we have a question on the Q&A, and it has to do with is there a parallel between Y2K and the cyber challenges, as well as solution of awareness, inclusiveness, and actions? I assume David has put that question up there, and I wonder if anyone can respond to that.
So I'll make a comment. Obviously, you can see my gray hair, and I lived through the Y2K generation. I would argue from my perspective that Y2K was than the digital ecosystem, the Internet of Things world we live in nowadays. And albeit computers were pretty prevalent during Y2K, they weren't as pervasive, invasive, depending on your perspective, as they are now in the Internet of Things, where our cars are connected devices, our cell phones are connected devices, our refrigerators are connected device. And in the Y2K period, we really truly did not have a digital ecosystem. We have an evolving ecosystem. Cryptocurrency is part of the digital ecosystem. And so when you look at that, I've heard the term used, the world, because of the Internet of Things and the digital ecosystem, a lot of things are being dematerialized. What does that mean? Well, Uber is a cab company, but they own no cabs. And so going forward, the challenges are similar, but I would argue that the challenges and the positive benefits of the digital cyber ecosystem is a little more complex. The fundamentals of, again, the economic clustering, economic models that Porter described many years ago are still relevant. But if you just look at COVID as an example, it accelerated technology that was sitting on the shelf, really. Zoom was not a brand new technology. It was, and we've accelerated that because of the need to reach and communicate because of a pandemic. Well, what is the next step? And so I think we can learn from the Y2K experience, but I think it's a little more narrow focused, the impact, than what we see now with what we call cyber or the digital ecosystem.
Thank you. Well, let me ask you if there's someone in our participants who is interested in replicating the kind of things that is happening in Aiken around, that involve the National Guard, that involve the city of Aiken and their government, that involve academia and also K through 12 and our technical schools, then what would you tell them? What kind of challenge would you tell them to expect right up front?
Okay, I'll take that one, Dr. Jordan. And you're specifically asking if someone's looking to come into the community?
You can answer that, but also if they're trying to replicate something like this and they're small.
Oh, another place is what challenges. Sorry, I'm sorry, I missed that part. Yeah, let me say, we've touched on it earlier, but I'm going to tell you the team and communication that we've had between higher ed, between our K through 12, the city and county government, we wouldn't be where we're at today without that. Certainly leadership, like from you, Dr. Jordan, at your time at USC Aiken. But it's key. It's no one person, no one group controls what it's a team effort. I mean, it takes everybody taking what they have, sharing that information, which is so critical, because there were times when we were going to make appeals and through conversation with you, for example, at USC Aiken, say, no, we've already reached that. Here's where we're going now. So you have to have adaptability, good communication, a strong team, and with a goal in mind. But I think you have to be fluid enough that to recognize that the first thing you write down on paper as your plan may not get you to where you want to be, and you have to always keep that in mind. You know, ultimately, this is what we want to see happen, and I can tell you along the way that plan is going to change a dozen times. But you have to stay fluid. You have to stay in good communication with your team and partners, and I think, like with working with any major goal, you just keep the end result in sight and moving towards that. I think that would be my input on that question.
Thank you, Mayor. Others?
Yeah, I'll add something, Dr. Jordan. Having been involved in this process for more than a decade, And to what the mayor says, you do have to have a plan, but the plan cannot be so narrowly focused that it myopically sends you down a dark hole. So it's got to be shaped in a vision. You have to understand who understands the vision. You have to educate the vision. And then you have to have trusted enabling partners, because you can't drive the vision alone. If you look at economic growth in the United States of America, we gravitate towards large metropolitan areas like Austin, Texas, or Atlanta, Georgia, or whatever. The struggle is, how do you do economic growth in middle town America, 50,000 population to 100,000 population? And how do you get the politicians, how do you get the educators to understand that the world is changing, this digital ecosystem, and your vision is helping the society, the community, your industry and academic and government partners succeed going forward. You also have to have a certain amount of patience. You may not get Christmas cards when you confront people with honesty and integrity. And you've got to have a certain level of articulate tenacity. Governors, county council people, elected members, and industry people, because the opportunity in the digital ecosystem, just because you were very, very successful for the previous 30 years, does not necessarily mean you're going to be successful in the current emerging digital ecosystem. And so it's an educational process going forward, and you can't give up. It requires constant pressure.
Linda, any advice from you for someone in a smaller community wanting to do something like this?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, it definitely starts with those relationships, and you can't work in a stovepipe, because it takes having that vision and seeing it. And if those relationships aren't already there, this will never happen. So it definitely shows that that communication was already there to make this happen. It was, the groundwork had already been laid long time ago, even before the vision was even there, because the relationships were already there. So it was just a perfect opportunity. And so I think it definitely takes having that vision, and it definitely takes just building those relationships across the board, and basically wanting to do something more to protect what we value most. And I think that's why we build this, and this is why it's so important.
Thank you.
Sandra, I have a question.
Yes. Hi,
following
John.
up. Hi, how are you? Thank you all really for really penetrating presentations, inspiring presentations. I was wondering if you were aware of the possibility of using infrastructure bill funds to really propel your initiative. That's the first question. And then the second, have you published a white paper or a position paper on the Aiken model, even if it's just a few pages, to explain the achievements in the process that could be shared with other mid-sized communities and replicated?
John, thank you so much for that. I think a white paper is a great idea. I'm going to ask Linda and the general and the mayor to please get one started right away. Infrastructure funds. Well, our speakers like to address that. It's a great question.
So I'll jump in with that. And that is a great question. And the white paper concept, we've actually considered that. I used the word template earlier. We have discussed that. And it is time to start putting it together, not because we want to protect any intellectual properties, but it kind of shows our intent and helps us focus going forward. The infrastructure is both the brick and mortar infrastructure as well as some ancillary enabling infrastructure. And I'll get into that. The typical economic model of manufacturing was you knock down a bunch of pine trees and you build an industrial park and you build lots of buildings. And the digital ecosystem now, particularly what COVID has shown us, is, again, I can live in Wisconsin and I can work for a company in Aiken, South Carolina, and be a productive employee. And so in a lot of cases, infrastructure needs to be repurposed. You can repurpose a building that may be 50 years old and accelerate it instead of building fancy new multi-story buildings. and it's really an urgency and need kind of scenario. The other part, and this gets into both the political realm and the Chamber of Commerce realm, is you have to identify those spaces that incentivize industry, particularly, to want to live and work in your regional space. Senator Tim Scott was one of the champions of opportunity zones, which give tax incentives to industry to set up businesses, technology businesses, and opportunity zones. And so in your plan, you've got to identify where are the opportunity zones, as an example, in Aiken and Aiken County, Edgefield County, some of the outlying areas. The other, because Cybercom is a government institution, and if you want to do business with the government, we need to identify those areas like hub zones, which gives me, if I'm an A-Day in a company, an advantage to go after contracts in the cyber domain working for the government. And so the infrastructure is more than just in brick and mortar buildings. It is the connective infrastructure. It is those incentivized spots around the state. And we are looking at that. I recently had a conversation with a county councilman about identifying hub zones, which are congressionally mandated areas that allow small business to compete effective businesses in doing cyber contracts with the government.
I'd like to remind you all there's a chat room going on at the same time. There's a wonderful comment by David there. He says he likes our approach as it is a community challenge versus a business challenge. David, do you have another question about a competition? Let's see if Ani has any questions for us.
Thank you, Sandra. Well, a very interesting panel, and I would like to really piggyback on John's question about having a white paper and tapping the infrastructure fund. But more importantly, Sandra, you and I have spoken about it, that how Cyber Command in Augusta and your presence in USC Aiken of this enterprise, you are bringing it to Aiken campus, and in general, the pull from Atlanta companies is making this region a huge cybersecurity potentially region. So I would like to hear our August panelists' comments about that. How do we have a bigger regional approach to the cybersecurity economic development capabilities?
Thanks for that question, Ani.
Jenna?
So a couple of years ago, Forbes magazine wrote an article and identified the potential cyber leading cities around the world over the next decade or so. And believe it or not, one of them was Augusta, Georgia, because of the influx of technology coming into. And if you look at the Central Savannah River Alliance, which is part of the whole ecosystem over there, Aiken County, Edgefield County, and South Carolina is integral to that process. And so if you look at the synergy of proximity, the influx of dollars and talent, that's going to cause a lot of positive synergistic activities to happen. And so the next things Dr. Jordan's talked about, and we've touched, hopefully in 2023, we'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony for a new building called the Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative. About the same time, we'll be constructing the Dreamport initiative, which will have a ribbon cutting ceremony. We're already building, as Linda said very appropriately, we're already building strong relationships with the leadership at Cybercom, at the leadership in the academic institutions and some businesses. And so they're excited about how do we leverage this going forward. One thing I want to add to that, though, is if we look around the United States, there's many best practices we can look to. If you look at the Michigan Merit System, if you look at the Bossier City Cyber Innovation Center, if you look at other areas, you can adapt. You don't need to recreate exactly what they have because they have different skill sets than we do. And we're in the process of adapting our strengths and weaknesses to move forward in the next step. And the most tangible next step are public announcements of partnerships, public announcements of ribbon cutting ceremonies. And we're pretty excited about that.
Thank you.
We have another question about if we want to be able to follow up on this, who should we get a hold of? And I'm happy for you to contact John and Ani, and they know how to reach all of us. They have our contact information, and any of us, the mayor, the colonel, the general, and I are happy to answer any questions and provide whatever other information you'd like. There's another question on what's next, and the general just touched on that. The Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative, which is the Savannah River, as you know, the Savannah River National Laboratory is what they call back in the woods and deep behind barbed wire. The Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative is going to be built on the University too, right next to the Dreamport. That is the National Guard's sort of centerpiece there in this region. And the next question is, how do we leverage some abilities and knowledge? I think I went dark there for a second.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the
Dr.
question,
Jordan,
Sandra? I didn't.
Yeah, I would, if you would repeat that, I think I could take a run at it, but.
Okay, so the question is, how else do we leverage this partnership to, what's the next step? What's the next 10 years?
Right. I mean, let me just say from our perspective, we're excited about the Dreamport, the potential with expanding the cyber. And I think the Colonel said it earlier, and so correct, that it really is a tight and known community who work together because there's synergy. I mean, one thing we know is cyber threats are continually continually changing. So the responses have to continually change also. It's not like manufacturing where you make widgets and, well, everybody has a widget now, so production's slowing down. Cyber changes at a pace none of us can keep up with. So it certainly is growing, and we understand that. And I think the synergy between public-private sector and this grows and feeds off of one another with that. I will say for us in the Aiken community, we've talked about the Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative. So Savannah Riverside is one of 17 DOE sites that has a national lab at it. Our national lab does a tremendous amount, even dealing with cyber and other things. It's behind a fence, if you can. It's because of the security. There has not been opportunities for technology transfer. So the AMC gives the opportunity on being on a higher education institution on the footprint of USC Aiken. It gives that opportunity within our community to bring in the private sector to be able to capitalize on some of the intellectual capital from that. I think that, coupled with what's happening at Fort Gordon, is one reason why it's attractive to the cyber and to the Dreamport. But I believe that the synergy that happens between that will be a large portion in part of our master plan. We certainly see the collaborations that happen there expanding and creating new opportunities for the Aiken community, both the city and larger in the county and the CSRA.
Go ahead, General.
So to add to that, South Carolina is very fortunate. The region is very fortunate also to have the Navy National Information Warfare Center, which houses one of the national cyber ranges. And I've been involved in conversations in NIWC. The Information Warfare Center wants to partner with Cybercom and wants to partner with the Dreamport and USC Aiken. And so we'll have an expanded collaborative. The other challenge and opportunities we go forward, and I truly believe that in the cyber digital ecosystem, you need to have a very balanced portfolio. It can't be lopsided towards the government. It's got to be well-rounded in an industry, academia, and government. And so the next step is to make sure we invest in a diversified cyber portfolio so that we have a sustainable.
And I believe, Linda, that the National Guard is thinking in that direction by inviting some businesses to share the Dreamport with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, definitely. And, you know, and the reason for that is as we build our infrastructure, we don't want our jobs and opportunities to go elsewhere. We want to keep that right here in South Carolina, which is huge. So we are definitely looking for businesses to partner with as we build out the Dreamport, as we build out our readiness center. You know, we'll have our soldiers right there. And again, it's about, you know, collaboration, you know, as we work together and we have hands-on with students. I mean, it's a beautiful thing if you think about it. But definitely, I think the more important piece is keeping our economy going right here, because if not, we're gonna really build up our talent pipeline and it's gonna move elsewhere. And so to have the, you know, the ANC, the Dreamport and everything right there collaborative, it's really great.
You're right. We have to keep setting those goals. Ani, how are we doing for time?
We have time for last question, Sandra.
We do have a question. Someone is asking us to identify some model cities that we're keeping an eye on as we develop our next phase of this.
Oh, that would be futuristic. Well, actually, Dr. McIntyre, can you please come back?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, we had a session on regionalization this morning. You know, how would you connect what Professor Shapira discussed with us this morning with the idea of combined Aiken, Augusta, Atlanta, that kind of region for cybersecurity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The presentation was by a colleague who is both a professor of city planning at Georgia Tech and at the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom. And we can share with you, it's his recipe to create an innovation district. There are about 80 or 90 of those in the world that qualify as such, but there's probably more than that. And I think we should share the presentation with Mayor Olson and the members of the panel, because it's a very insightful presentation which details what are the pieces in the puzzle to really get to that endpoint called an innovation district that has global visibility, that is job productive and attracts a lot of knowledge workers and garners a lot of R&D investment. So should we send it to you, Sandra, and you'll pass it on to the mayor?
Yeah.
I'd be
And the colonel and the
proud to.
general there. And I think you'll find it very detailed and very practical and in terms of best practices with a lot of comparatives.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Jordan, I thank you. And I thank Mayor Osborne, Major General Eisner, and Colonel Denner for their time and valuable sharing of experiences. And we hope to stay connected with you and all the panelists here for our future expanded version of this event on this topic. As you know, we like to pick some topics and then expand them in a few months. And Dr. McIntyre, with your permission, we will close this session. And I request all the speakers of this session to please log out and log back in as an attendee.
Thank you, Ani and John, for providing a forum to share these ideas. And thank you to the panelists.